Good to meet you, Mary
Yeah.
Beth.
Good to meet you too. Congrats on Death of a Unicorn. I had such a blast watching it last night in the theater, and it was a really good theater experience too, so it was a blast.
Oh, cool. Where did you
I am in Washington, D.C., so I actually saw it nearby, like in Tyson's Corner, if you know anything about the area. But yeah,
don't, but DC
yeah,
seems yeah, no, that's great. It's
it's an interesting place right now. But yeah.
oh God,
But
yeah, I
yeah,
didn't right. I was like crab cakes. That's cool, right?
yeah, no, true. That's better. Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I had such a blast watching this movie, and I was like a unicorn kid, but like a weird unicorn kid, which that's why I like this movie even more, because I liked the medieval tapestry unicorn and things like that. So why did the unicorn pop into your brain for this creature feature? Hell
Uh,
yeah, cool. Hell
yeah,
yeah, love it.
yeah, I don't know. Honestly, the real answer is I was not a unicorn kid. I had no relationships to unicorns whatsoever. I had never thought about them for more than a passing second. But for some reason, I had this idea. It was like 10 years ago, maybe. I had this idea for a movie that was like, I don't know, a family, a father and daughter are driving somewhere in a very like banal conversation, very grounded of the world. All of a sudden, they hit a unicorn with their car and are like, "What the fuck do we do with this thing?" And I didn't know what it meant or what it was. It was just like an idea that like stuck in my brain. And I literally was just like, I sat on it for like 3 years. And I was like, I don't know what to fucking do with this thing. But I kept thinking about it. And I was like, it's a really expensive short film. It doesn't mean anything to me. And I'm not really going to make it because it's a really expensive short film. Because you need to do a unicorn. Like,
Yeah, you know, a casual unicorn. You just duct tape a horn to a horse, right? Like that's how you do
exactly.
it.
No, but so it started with that, and then I don't know. As a writer, I try to, whenever something like that, that's happened to me a few times where I have like a visual or a scene or something, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, what, like, and then you kind of need to just start pulling the string and be like, where does this lead? I have no idea, and just start, see where it goes.
Yeah.
And it led me into unicorn research. I didn't really have any emotional association, but once you start digging into that, you become very immediately aware of like if you take it in earnest, you're like, oh wow, there's a really deep well of cultural associations and collective memories and feelings about unicorns and a crazy rich history that goes back almost 2,500 years of unicorns, which become
Wild.
like a fascinating symbol of storytelling into itself of like Jorge Luis Borges has this great quote that in his book of imaginary beings that the first unicorn story is almost identical to the latest, which is very true. And that unicorn
Yeah,
lore
yeah,
hasn't
yeah.
changed a ton. And so when you realize that, you're like, well, if the first is the same as the latest, then why have we in the past 50 or so years kind of deviated from that so deeply? And what could be gained or what's the narrative potential of taking an older story and bringing it into a contemporary context? And so that sort of became like a fundamental like North Star of the movie of like explore older lore, recontextualize it, synthesize it, and at some point in the discovery of it, I sort of reimagining it, synthesizing that stuff down and recontextualizing it in the structure of a creature feature of like the
Yeah.
late 70s to 90s. That was like another one of the North Stars of like, oh, this was I realized it sort of became my way to do like a Spielberg, Cameron,
Yeah.
Carpenter, Ridley Scott movie.
I got Jurassic Park vibes watching it. I felt like I was watching fantasy Jurassic Park, which I love, honestly. So thank you for that. But I know I read the production notes
Yeah.
about the creation of your unicorns, but I wanted to hear a little bit more from you because obviously, unicorns aren't real, sadly, everybody, or at least as we know. And you have some really awesome digital work here and practical. So I wanted to hear a little bit more from you about creating the design of your unicorns and deciding when to use a body versus digital.
Yeah, I mean, the design of them it was a really long, fun process. I love doing it. I was actually very sad when I had to stop doing it because we had to start making the movie. It was something I could just do forever. I feel like creature designing. I don't know,
That's
it
so
was great.
cool.
We went back to like historical references as a starting point of like people describing unicorns in, what was the first description of a unicorn in 398 BC? Like look at that. Look at a lot of historical references and doing a lot of research into it. Like again, that was sort of my foundational basis of just like do a ton of research and
Can you do
and
a
try and
shirt that says unicorn scholar on it? I feel like you're probably now like the eminent unicorn history scholar in the world, I'm gonna
believe
say,
me,
probably.
I've had the realization of like why no one has read as much. Like, there's some really boring books that I've read that are like, I remember there was one that's like the first real academic attempt to capture unicorn mythology was this book called The Lore of the Unicorn by a guy named Odell Shepherd, who
Wait,
obviously,
are you serious? That was his
yeah,
name?
yeah, Odell
Oh,
Shepherd.
that's so funny. Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, and I remember reading that book, and there's like passages of untranslated Latin. It's like so dry, and I
Oh,
remember reading that with my wife, like at a beach vacation. My wife's like, "You are not making good headway on that." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a dry ass book. Like there is nothing in here.
what
There's
a
been
beach
more."
read. Purely
Oh my
academic
God.
writing and non-translated text by an academic, and
Yeah,
it's like an old ass book
like
probably, and
100 years ago. Yeah, from the
yeah, and you're
1920s.
on the beach like I've never been more bored in my entire.
Yeah, exactly right. There's more, not better. That's a great book, but it was more important as like the first of its kind than the most,
Oh,
easy read. But I don't
wow.
know, from a creature design perspective, it starts with the research, and then you want to have fun with it and try and keep it grounded. It was important to me that they felt like real animals, and so we researched a
Hmm.
lot of looked at like prehistoric animals, like woolly rhinos compared to rhinos, and then started thinking about like, oh, well, what if it's like that kind of like an ice age version of a horse or something like that, and you start getting into prehistoric animals. There's Equus gigantus is this really cool like giant horses that used to roam North America. They were crazy. You
No
look at
thanks.
Equus gigantus. It's wild how huge they were. Just megafauna horses. So you get into some of that stuff. You start like pulling little bits from history, start pulling bits from different horses that are real breeds, like fur of Icelandic horses has this kind of wintry quality to it. And you look at Percheron,
Ooh.
Belgian draft horses, and the creature design is something, and then you start building out like the chimera kind of like, it's important that they weren't just like horses with horns, so making
Oh
sure
yeah.
the tail, and this is described like Pliny the Elder talks about like, oh, they had what did he say? Elephant-like hooves, and they had like tail like a boar and things like that. And so that's, Pliny the Elder is the Roman Empire, so you go
Yeah.
back to the historical stuff, and I don't know, it's a challenge. It's fun to try
That's
and
so
like pull
cool.
together of like how do you make it coherent and cohesive and still feel like they're, a big thing was make it coherent, cohesive, still feel referencing antiquity, but also grounded as like this is, oh, there's a way for these creatures to have actually existed and survived, to be in hiding in the
Yeah.
northern reaches of Canada. But then, the three unicorns in the family themselves are all kind of slightly different from each other. They're supposed to feel like of a species, obviously, but the foal is kind of more like a medieval unicorn from the Middle Ages, kind
Yeah.
of like. Um, the mare is more equine in a kind of contemporary context that we might associate with a unicorn. And then the stallion is more brute-like, and which kind of goes back to some of the most ancient references to unicorns, which are kind of more based on rhinoceroses, Indian rhinos, and aurochs. And so the stallion has this kind of like very broad shoulders, and kind of the spinal geometry of it is a little bit different.
Yeah. I think in the notes it said you but to break their spine essentially to like give them that predator look, right? And like the design and
Yeah,
like playing with the
that was like a
skeleton.
fun. That was a big part of it. Like they shouldn't feel like unicorn. Like, they shouldn't feel like horses with horns. That was a big part of it, was to make them feel predatory and to get
Yeah, that was crazy. A predatory horse is a very like strange concept in your
yeah, no,
head.
totally. And when I started talking to the animators, I was like, we need it to like have like this like kind of shoulder waggle that's like that's very uncanny, and it feels inherently predatory, and it feels very lithe and agile in a
Well,
way
yeah, it's
that we.
very cat-like. It's very much like the bat, like the big cats that like move like that. When you,
Oh,
I have
exactly.
cats and they move like that, even
But the
like when
way,
they're my
yeah,
past cats.
no, I have a cat too, and I would just like watch him walk around and be like, yeah, I like that. But like,
But cooler. and
Exactly.
big.
No, but you do have to, the way that CG models works is like you have to, they build a spine, they build a skeletal system, and then it moves. They build musculature, and then it kind of like that's how the modeling works. And we did have to like literally break the spine and be like, this is not, we're gonna take the horse anatomy and we're gonna break it so that the shoulders move differently, like change.
Cool.
And so yeah, that was like a big piece of it. Sorry,
You
we talked
you
about
literally like puzzled together a unicorn. That's so cool. Like I can see why you're like, I don't want to stop doing this. This is fun. I liked the
oh
research and
yeah,
like
it
the
was, it
just
was really
like
fun.
that's so cool. And have
And
you
then
okay,
oh
so
yeah.
you're not oh, I'm so sorry. What were you gonna say?
Oh, no, I just realized I didn't talk about the practical effects of it all. You asked about that
Oh,
too,
yeah,
right?
no, yeah, exactly. Because you mean like it's digital, but you have practical unicorns
Yeah,
in this.
totally. No, we shot with horses on set a little bit. We shot a bunch of reference footage of horses moving and doing actions. As like a
Horses are the
second.
scariest animals to me, by the way. They
I
scare the
agree. I've
shit
never
out of
been on a
me.
horse. They terrify me.
Yeah.
Uh,
You've
I find
never been
horse.
on a horse?
I've never been on a horse.
No, I
I
fell
grew
off
up.
a horse and I just can't do it.
My brother fell off a horse, so I was never allowed on one. Yeah, but I grew up going to the horse track a lot. So I have like a
Oh, where'd you grow up?
in New York.
Okay, cool. I'm East Coast too, so yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. But I have a real reverence for horses as like just enormous, powerful creatures, which I think gets into the whole horse girl like kind of relationship attraction of like these creatures that are like could hurt you, but they choose not to because they like you. You know what I mean? And like you have a bond with it. Like, I think there's like and there's something very powerful about that feeling. A little beauty in
Ugh,
the
I couldn't be me. I'm too scared of that. I'm just like,
I
I
don't
respect you
like
and
I
I run
said.
away. But anyway.
But yeah, no, so we had horses on set a little bit. We had a lot of puppets. With wide
Cool.
shots, you kind of have to rely on VFX certainly. But we had a
Yeah.
lot of puppets and practical assets that were, the intention was always like VFX augmenting them with like 2D animation
Yeah.
uh pushed on top of the practical assets. So yeah, it was a fun combination of like practical and CG and yeah, I don't know. And a lot
Cool.
of practical gore and things like that. I don't know. I love
Oh, the gore too. Like so cool for your first feature to get to play in that practical space so much, like with gore and with puppets. It's so cool. Like what a cool experience.
I worked as a producer for a while, and it was always like, I
Yeah.
don't know, I love doing that stuff. I like as a producer, it's like such a fun, like stunts, gore, puppets. It's just like the stuff that makes you feel like this is escapism, this is like fantasy, this is the stuff dreams are made of, you know?
Hell yeah. Yeah. Before we wrap up, I just have a very quick question. I know you're not a big you weren't like a unicorn person, but did you ever see The Last Unicorn, the animated film featuring the music
Course.
of America?
I'm very familiar with it, and the opening sequence, the opening credit sequence, is an animated version of the Unicorn Tapestries.
I know exactly. So that's why I was just like, I hope he's seen it because that movie, I watched that movie every day for a year when I was 5. And like that was my favorite movie. So I was like, that's why I was excited for this because I like that kind of fucked up,
Oh, yeah,
like weird version of the unicorn. So that's why
yeah.
I was stoked for this. I know they're different, but I had to know because it's a very influential
Oh,
film to me.
no, I love that movie. My only bummer about that movie is like the unicorn is a unicorn for so little screen time. She turns into the
I
woman.
know
What's
she's
the
a
movie name?
woman.
Yeah, she's
Oh
a woman
God, with
for
the
most
little
of the
bump
movie.
on her head. But yeah.
Yeah, the little star thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I love that movie. I just wish it was like, give me more of the unicorn stuff. And
that's
that
true.
bulldog antagonist. Yeah, no, that movie was great.
Such a good movie.
That
Cool.
movie's a
Okay.
real, that's a movie where like, oh yeah, they don't make children's movies like that anymore.
No, I don't. My parents should not have been letting me as a child watch it every day and like laugh and dance as I'm watching this horrible movie, but whatever. Congratulations on Death of the Unicorn. It's such a blast,
Very
and everyone see you in theaters.